Hey, I'm Mitchell. Welcome to another video in the RSP Education series. Think your disconnect switch has you covered? Not unless it's fused. And even then, only if it's fused right. Most people assume a disconnect switch shuts off power and protects their gear. But here's the truth. Without the right fuse inside, your equipment is wide open to burnout, fire risk, or even total shutdown. In this video, we're going to dive into the critical details of what fused disconnects really do, why time delay versus fast-acting fuses aren't interchangeable, and how bad coordination can take down your whole panel. Whether you're running motors, heaters, or control panels, this knowledge could be the difference between safe operations and a fried system. Stay locked in, watch through to the end, and never second-guess your fuse choice again. If you like this kind of content and want more educational videos, please like and subscribe. Also, this video is for educational purposes only. Consult a professional for your application. RSP Supply is not liable for any misuse of this information. With that said, let's jump right into it. Some disconnect switches come fused. These are called fusible disconnect switches. They combine two things into one, a disconnect, which you can manually switch off, and fuses, which provide automatic overcurrent protection. It's a convenience and space-saving move, especially useful in motor control centers, VFD panels, or rooftop units where you don't want to run wires to separate fuses and disconnects. So what's inside of these? You open the enclosure and you'll usually see 3 fuse holders for each phase, L1, L2, L3, mounted inside of the switch. When the switch handle is in the off position, you can safely change those fuses. This combo setup is compact, but you still have to select the correct fuse type for your application. More on that next. So, use case for this. In an industrial conveyor system, you might have a fuse to disconnect feeding a motor starter. If something goes wrong with the motor, say the belt jams up and causes a high current spike, the fuse will blow and protect the motor from thermal damage, and the disconnect switch can then be opened to swap in a new fuse. It's both safe and smart. You need to match, though, the fuse type to your load. This is a non-negotiable because fuses are not a one-size-fits-all. They're designed with different speed characteristics, meaning how fast they respond to an overcurrent. There are 2 main fuse characteristics that are relevant to more industrial applications. First off, you got time delay fuses, like a class RK5 for motors. What they do is these fuses are slow to blow on purpose. Motors have inrush currents, which is a temporary current spike 6 to 8 times higher than normal when starting up. A fast fuse would see that spike and blow immediately, even though it's normal. Time delay fuses, they allow that inrush to pass, usually for 10 to 30 seconds. Then they start watching for real overloads. They're designed to ride through startup surges, but still blow if there's sustained overload or a fault. So where you would use time delay fuses in motors, whether that be HVAC or compressors, conveyors or pumps, transformers with inrush currents, or really anything that's inductive. So why it matters is if you use a fast-acting fuse on a motor circuit, you're constantly going to be replacing fuses for no reason every time the motor starts. You're also going to have frustrated techs and potentially unsafe workarounds like oversizing the fuse to make it work. So now let's talk fast-acting fuses. Lots of times class J or class CC, for resistive loads particularly. So what these do, these blow almost immediately when their current exceeds their rating. That's exactly what you want for resistive loads like heaters or incandescent lights or non-motor loads that do not draw a large startup surge. You would use them in electric heaters, lighting circuits, control transformers, and PLC power supplies. This matters because if you use a time delay fuse on a resistive load and there's a fault, it might take too long to blow, exposing your wiring or devices to excessive heat or even fire risk. Fast-acting fuses will protect those loads much better. Then you need proper coordination to avoid nuisance tripping and to protect your gear. What do we mean by coordination in this context? Coordination means choosing and sizing your fuses and breakers so that each part of your system trips only when it's supposed to. You don't want a tiny fault in a motor circuit taking down your whole panel. This involves matching the protection device to the load, sizing it according to NEC guidelines, and staggering your trip times and current ratings up the chain. NEC rules to remember. For motors, Article 430 of the NEC, or the National Electrical Code, is the gold standard. It says, use 125% of the motor's full load amperage, or FLA, to size a fuse or breaker. Sometimes you can go a little higher, up to 175% for fuses, depending on startup current and coordination with downstream protection. If you're using both a fuse and a motor overload relay, they need to work together without overlap. What happens if you mess this up? Well, if you undersize the fuse or breaker, it trips constantly when equipment starts up. That's called nuisance tripping. If you oversize it, it won't trip fast enough during a fault, risking damage to motors, wiring, or insulation. If you don't coordinate upstream, downstream protection, a small downstream fault might trip the whole main breaker, taking your whole line or facility offline. Bad news for uptime and safety. So some key takeaways: fuse disconnects combine manual safety plus automatic protection. Use time delay fuses for motors and inductive loads. They handle startup surges. Used fast-acting fuses for resistive loads. They blow quickly to protect sensitive gear. Coordination is everything. Size, select, and sequence protection devices properly. NEC Article 430 is your blueprint for motor protection. Don't ignore it. And here's the golden rule to walk away with. Disconnects make it safe to work. Fuses and breakers keep your system safe to run. Pick smart, size right, coordinate everything. For a full line of disconnect switches and hundreds of thousands of industrial automation products, go to our website. That's rspsupply.com, the internet's top source for industrial hardware.